My friends, today is an awesome, unbelievable day. Today is Yud Aleph Nisan, the birthday of Mashiach, the long-awaited Redeemer. Now, you may say, if he's the Redeemer, where is the redemption? My friends, there's a famous story that a man went to seek enlightenment, and he went to Tibet, and he gets to the top of the mountain, and he says to this monk, the monk was selling Coke, "Can I buy a Coke?" So monk says, "Sure, it's $1. So he takes out, he had a $2 bill, he gives him a $2 bill. And he buys his Coke and he's waiting. And the monk says, "What are you waiting for?" He says, "I'm waiting for my change." "Ah, change," says the monk. "Change must come from within." You see, the whole goal of the world is not an external change, even though that will come, and externally our world is infinitely better than it ever has been. But an internal change. What is freedom? Freedom is knowing that every day you matter. Freedom is mattering every day. And I'm a seeker of truth, thank God. God sent us the Rebbe who packaged truth for us in the simplest, most, I don't want to use the word profound because profound makes it complicated. He took the most amazing ideas, he brought them right down into simple steps for us to follow. And the last talk of the Rebbe is everything we need to know in order to be basically everything we need to be, which will certainly make us happy. Because inside of us there is God, there is goodness. But if our outside doesn't meet our inside, we feel conflicted. A dog doesn't feel conflicted if he's a dog, because he doesn't have a soul. But a human being that has part of God in him, that acts like a dog, that all he's into is bones or some other stupidity, can never feel good. And in this moment, this special holy Yud Aleph Nisan, listen carefully to your own soul, because the Rebbe is your soul. Every generation has a source soul. We're all offshoots of the Rebbe. All the energy comes through the Rebbe. And if you listen, you'll be infinitely blessed, physically and spiritually together. The Rebbe says in the last talk, Vayakel, that first and foremost, and this is an amazing thing because the whole world is looking for world peace. And the Rebbe teaches us how to have world peace. If you had a teaching on how to have world peace, would you take it? I would take it. And this is how it goes. You see, why, this is something that the Rambam says, why do families have more love within the family than, say, strangers? I love my sister. Why do I love her more than I love a stranger? The answer is, and here's a good proof of it. Let's say I found out this girl is my sister. She was adopted, but she's my sister. I would have a special love for her. Why? Because love is based on identification. What is identification? Identification means that I see myself in you. And that's why Jewish people in general have great love. Jews, think about it. It's the only country in the history of the world that 2,000 years after its people were dispersed, one group of people came back and they said, "We're making this country," and any Jew, you could have left not only 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. You're welcome. And they did welcome them. The Jews from Yemen, they sent planes. The Jews were in Yemen for 2,500 years. Can you imagine, as Americans, we all get dispersed? And then a group from India of Americans, they come back to America. And with God's help, they conquer America. And they say, anybody who is an American American 2,500 years ago is willing to come back. You can't even imagine somebody saying that. And that's how close we are. That's what a people we are. We're brothers. Unfortunately, when things are good, sometimes we forget. But when things are bad, we always remember. So, the first thing is, in order to have world peace, we have to see how we are not separate pieces, but we are basically one piece in separate parts. And once you understand this, you'll have world peace. And how do we know we're one piece in separate parts? Because there's one God. And all of us, what God did, and this is very important to understand, we are all part of His symphony. And this is not only humans. This is an animal. This is a tree. We know without trees we couldn't live. And without our breath, they couldn't live. There's a symbiotic relationship between everything that exists. Without the sun, we couldn't live. Without the moon, without water, without temperature, and without one another. But more importantly, this is designed. Everything has a soul, has a purpose, and all we need to do is realize this fact. Because again, the example I gave you, the moment somebody would say, oh, you know, that girl is really your sister, I may never have seen her before. Just the knowledge that she's my sister would make me have an extraordinary love for her. They say blood is thicker than water. Why? Because you know it's your blood. That's why. So when you see anything that exists, be it a fellow man, especially a fellow person, for Jews have 613 commandments. They have special mission to be a light unto the nations, a kingdom of priests. And Gentiles have a commandment, 7 hard laws to create a good and civilized world. We're all, I think Judaism is the only religion that says there's not one religion. There are two religions. There's a religion for Jews and a religion for Gentiles. Both coming from the same God who will reward them both. They'll both have heaven. They'll both have the world to come. Because we don't have to be the same. We have to be ourselves. We have to be part. It's like a symphony. If everybody wanted to do the same thing, you wouldn't have a symphony. The beauty of a symphony is each instrument is playing a part. Now, if each instrument sees itself as separate and each one wants to be the soloist, you're going to have chaos. But if each one realizes God came to us and He gave me a mission, He gave you a mission, and if I fulfill my mission, I make the world a better place. Generally speaking, the Holy Arizal says that there are scholars and there are business people. That's obviously within men. Within women, it's obvious the mission is to have children and raise a beautiful, loving world. But there are scholars, Torah scholars, and business people. The scholars, I actually said that wrong. The scholars are, he calls it masters of Torah and masters of good deeds. The scholar, he's involved in scholarly stuff. He's not so much in the world. The master of good deeds, they're more in the world, whether you're a plumber or whether you're a businessman, whatever you are, whether you're a woman in your own realm. The point is that that's every single person, a Gentile as well. The world is about goodness and kindness. You are a master of good deeds. That's what you are, and that's what you should be a master of. And so the first point to world peace is to understand that we're all pieces of the same piece. We just have different parts that we play. And therefore, this is especially by the Jewish people, that there's an extra mitzvah commandment of unity. And we say there's a single Jewish soul. We're all actually, today being the Rebbe's birthday, every generation has a Rebbe, and all souls come from that soul. And the Rebbe says a very important thing, that God tells us to give half a shekel. Why does God say give 20? He says a shekel is the weight of 20 ger. In the olden days, they would weigh coins. Half of it, 10, half of it is a shekel. Half a shekel that you have to give. Why not say give 10 ger, which is half a shekel? The answer is the shekel is called the holy shekel. If you want to be holy in God's eyes, don't be holy in your eyes. Very important point. Sometimes we become spiritually arrogant. To be holy in God's eyes, you have to be whole with your fellow man. As it relates to a Jew, you have to be the friend of every Jew. You have to see every other Jew as your other half. And without him, without her, like the letters in the Torah, the whole thing is deficient. You're not holy unless you're united with every Jew. And if you're not, don't come to me and show me how holy you are, because I want to see how many friends you are. In fact, it says that when we get to heaven, God says to the angels, let's go look at what people say about this person. Woody Allen says the audience is never wrong, right? People will say he's a good guy, he's not a good guy. That's what God wants to hear. Do people like you? If you're liked by people, you're liked by God. Now, we have to understand that the mechanism to create this unity is, first of all, understand the unity between yourself and God. Because you and God are also two halves. Because God made your soul, which has 10 parts. We know the famous thing without going into all the Kabbalah. And God put himself into the universe of Atzilus, which has 10 parts. And the two unite and they become one. So like two flames that become one, you're one flame, you're one with God. And then the Rebbe says that we have to wake up from the stupidities, the vanities. He quotes what the Rambam says, one of the greatest Jewish rabbis, doctors, philosophers. He says, people have to wake up from wasting their lives. And I think this time that we're in, this coronavirus, is a great time to wake up. Because in the Western world, and really the way it works in all societies, obviously when people are poor, they try to become rich. And societies create functionality when things are difficult, law, order, etc. However, when things become prosperous, there are three types of people. One group becomes lazy and they just do nothing. Another group says, okay, things are prosperous, I'm going to prosper. And they try to make money and have a nice house and go on vacations. And then there's a third group. And they say, I wonder what the purpose of life is. You have to be in the third group. You can't be lazy and you can't be stupid. You have to wake up from wasting your life on stupid text messages, on social media, and on the media in general. People are wasting their lives. Every day that goes by is irreplaceable. Money can come back, but time cannot come back. I don't mean to be melodramatic, but you know, in the olden days, my mother used to have it. They didn't have, like, everything wasn't digital. So you would bake a cake, you would have this thing, you would turn it, 30 minutes it would ring. That was called a timer. When you're born, there's a timer that's put on you. 80 years, 70 years, look at the average. Let's say based on statistics, 90 years, there's a timer. And the timer's ticking. And every day you lose, that day is gone forever. Every day is a universe. The Baal Shem Tov says every day we create a universe. Infinite universes in heaven. And every universe needs light. You have to do Torah. You have to do mitzvahs. You have to pray. You have to give charity, the most important mitzvah. Help people, be kind. That's what you have to do every day. Now, obviously, we might have specific obligations, whether you're a man going to work, whether you're a woman helping in the home, whatever it is. But the bottom line is, Don't waste your life. And if you're young and you have the time, every day you're making a universe. Every moment, everything you think, say, and do makes an angel in the universe. This is real. You get to heaven, those angels show up. They're the memory system of everything you did. If you did good, you have a beautiful world. And that's why every day, in fact, every second matters. Now, last but not least, the Rebbe says that there are 3 levels in giving charity, because ultimately the shekel was about giving charity. And I want to say something very important. It's a little harsh, but it's very important. This is the greatest test that we face. You know, there are 2 types of tests. There's the test of poverty. And in poverty, the test is, will you remain faithful? And then there's the test of prosperity. And the test of prosperity is, will you be charitable? And thank God I have a lot of friends. Some of them are wealthy. And I have to say, few of them, very few. In fact, there was a rabbi in a resort town which had very, very wealthy people. I can tell you honestly, even though I have some friends, they give 20% of their income to charity. It's a nice amount of money. It's very nice. But I don't think anybody that I know of, at least, passes this test. Because there's one rabbi that I can think of. He's not a wealthy person, but he's a guy that has, 30, 40 people around his table all the time. I mean, it's just unbelievable charity, nonstop. A home that's open to everyone. The test of prosperity is, are you going to be a selfish person, or are you going to be a giving person? Because the guy who doesn't have anything is no worse than you. And I see this very clearly because I've been through times of great poverty. And it's very interesting because when you're in times of poverty, we're talking real poverty, like you barely have enough money for food. It's like, and then you're in times of prosperity. It's almost like people think there's another society. There's a society of poor people. And they don't belong to it. I got news for you, buddy. You belong to it. This coronavirus is showing you, please God, everything comes right. Like this. You know, everything can change overnight. Overnight, the world can change. Either very high, Mashiach can come, and that's what the Rebbe wants. And if you listen to me carefully, I guarantee you Mashiach will come, because the one thing I have a skill set in is understanding Chassidus and the teachings of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe is saying very clearly in the last talk, in fact, he said this in Parshas Vayikra, when he was alluding to like a pandemic and how to get over it. In charity, there are 3 levels. There's obviously, if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, you have to give something. But if you can afford it, there's 10%. There's 20%. And then there's everything. The Baal Shem Tov didn't go to sleep at night without giving everything to charity. In fact, the Rebbe, of course, and all the Rebbes gave everything to charity. I should mention, there's one tzaddik. He'd be embarrassed if I say his name, but his father was a famous person, Mendel Futerfas. And he told me Mendel Futerfas was a businessman. And whenever he would make money, he would tell his wife, if you need money, tell me, because everything else I'm giving to charity. And his business partners had to save some of the income so he could invest in future business deals. Because everything he got, he gave to charity. This is a man who went to prison, and the day he gets out of prison, he makes a collection. He was, 10, 20 years in prison. He makes a collection. Who's not going to give money to a guy who spent 10, 20 years in prison because of helping other Jews? And then he gives all the money away. So they said, why did you collect the money? He said, now I knew people would feel bad. You understand what kind of people we're dealing with? And this individual, his son, he used to give all his money. In fact, he would take a salary from the charity organization. He'd make money, he was smart, a businessman, and he would take a salary from the charity organization. That, my friend, and that man is blessed. One thing I can tell you. You see, I'm a rabbi and I deal with people, some of them were very wealthy. And it's very sad. I'm visiting them now, all that money, they're paying it for health care. Fortunes are gone over stupid things. And they're good people. They, don't get me wrong, good people, charitable people. But I guarantee you, charity saves from death. Had those people given all their money to charity, lived middle class, not wealthy, gave it all away, they would have a blessed life. And that's what we have to understand. Blessings are not money, because money can only buy you a blessing. Being rich is not a blessing. Person dies with $1 billion or $1 million, it's not going to make one big difference. We're all buried in the same white clothing. A blessing is what you use your money on. And this is the words of the Rebbe. That's a blessing. And no matter how much money you have, God will determine if your money is going to be a blessing or not. Are you going to use it on healthy, happy things? So this is real, my friends. You don't own your money. As we see, all of it can disappear, God forbid, overnight. I remember Mrs. Gutnick saying about her brother that he had, I think he has got back on his feet, but at a time he was wealthy and then things crashed. And she says, I was so proud of the money he gave. Nobody can take the money you give. And so, quite simply, this is critical. And the reason it's critical is very simple. We all have in us a GPS. We all have many desires. So the question is, what do we do? And the answer is we do what we desire most. And you can rationalize anything. But this is absolute. If you're doing something, it's because you desire it. A guy's a drug addict. He doesn't want to be he wants to be a drug addict. That's why he's a drug addict. When does he change? When he hits rock bottom and he wants to change more than he doesn't want to change. So anything you're doing because you want to do it. And you have to decide what's going to be the GPS. You got to plug in the GPS in your head. And there's only one GPS for each one of us, and that is, I am God's soldier. That's my GPS. Why do I have money? To do what He wants me to do. Why do I have a day? To do what He wants me to do. And one of the things God wants me to do is to do exactly what I'm doing. And again, this is not my words. I'm not making anything up. This is all the Lubavitch Rebbe. Again, the last talk. And this will make us happy because, again, if your GPS, if your outer self and your inner self are aligned, then bingo, you click into place. You feel good. And basically, the Rebbe is telling us that we have to share this message with the world. There's a big crisis. Young people are committing suicide. They're committing suicide because they live in a secular world which says to them the only value you have is if you're a consumer and if you vote for some radical politician. That's it. That's all. That's the only message of value they get. And your job, if you're listening to this, is use everything in your power to tell every young person that exists that you are created by God, because He loves you, because He loves love, and because you are His source of love in this world. And when you actualize this and you share the message and you share love with another person, and goodness and kindness is not restricted only to money. Many people, certainly young people, don't have money. It's a helping hand. The Rebbe predicted the internet. He said it was created so we give people charity across the world, which billions of dollars are being given to charity. It's a beautiful thing. And you look at it, I'm very proud of our American richest people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett probably gave the largest charity donation in the world, $53 billion. Bill Bill Gates resigns from his company and dedicates his life to distributing Warren Buffett's, his own money, and they create a foundation to get all billionaires to give 50% of their wealth to charity, and anybody that has anything against money is a schmo. Make some money and do what these people are doing, because they're the ones changing the world. First of all, through making great products and companies, and second of all, through helping others with their income. And that's what we should be doing if you don't have a different mission in life. And last but not least, when you tell someone that the world needs you because you're the other half of the world. Who's the world made up of? We think there's a world outside of us. You are the world outside of me. I need you. You're my other half. And when we get this message that everybody should understand that we're all each other's other halves, then what a beautiful, wonderful world that the Rebbe and all the great saints that will be resurrected immediately with the coming of the Mashiach, we will literally live eternally with great joy and love and happiness. And let us say Amen.